This is Hart with the Climate Report, video number 3. So on video number 1, we talked about the 5 threats to our existence, and which includes climate change, loss of biodiversity, nuclear war, agribusiness-based food system, and threats to our water supply. So those are the 5 threats to our existence. And what I'm going to do now is give 5 reasons or 5 elements of the power structure that cause these threats to begin with. Number 1, power is not held by the majority. So we live in a world in which power is not held by the majority. We live in a democracy where power is not held by the majority. So you vote for a Democrat or Republican, both of them are bought by corporate money, both of them are owned by the big banks, both of them are owned by the war machine, both of them are owned by agribusiness. Now some candidates, are going to take money more from some corporate industries and not others, but the representatives that you elect do not serve you. They serve their corporate donors. The senators we elect do not serve us. They serve their corporate donors. And the president that we elect does not serve us. The president we elect serves his own financial interests, serves the donors that got him elected. So number 1, power is not held by the majority. That is one of the political causes of the fact that we have these 5 threats to our existence. It's a situation that would never exist if the majority actually ruled. Reason number 2 of the political reasons, the political causes for the fact that our very existence is threatened, is that power is money and money is power. So we have, we're told that we live in a democracy, but we have decided, somewhere along the way, we decided that we're going to give more power to those who have more money. And when you give more power to those who have more money, then it's no longer a democracy. It's a plutocracy. It's the rule of the money. So let's, is it a perfect plutocracy? No, but it's not a perfect democracy either. So look at a spectrum where you have democracy on the one end and plutocracy on the other end. Do we live in a perfect democracy? Well, we know that we don't live in a perfect democracy because we know that money impacts elections, etc. Do we live in a perfect plutocracy? Well, no, because now and then somebody is elected who did not spend the most money. Trump is one of the few. I mean, I'm no Trump fan, and he does serve the power. He does serve the power elites, but it's one of the few instances in which the person who spent the most money did not actually win the election. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is another example of somebody who was outspent by 5 to 1 or 10 to 1, and yet she won the election. Did not take corporate money, but yet won the election, versus Joe Crowley, who took a lot of corporate money. The other example, Bernie Sanders in 2016 did not actually win the election, but the fact that he did so well without being, driven by corporate donations, it was an exception. But see, these are exceptions. I've just named all the exceptions I can think of to the overwhelming rule that money is a fantastic predictor of who wins elections. Add to that the fact that the big banks are funding both candidates. Fossil fuel companies are funding both candidates. Agribusiness is funding both candidates. Big insurance is funding both candidates. Big pharma is funding both candidates. So we live in a world where power is money and money is power. That's what we have for now, and as long as power is money and money is power, then it may be not surprising that we would have a situation where our very existence is threatened because the nuclear war and the war machine and agribusiness are all, we have this situation, all these 5 threats to our existence they exist because we are governed by a very few, not the majority as you would hope in a democracy. Number three, corporate power structure. So sometimes in my debates and in my Facebook political debates, they say, "Oh, you're a corporate hater." I don't hate corporations any more than I hate the wind. But corporations are something that were invented, and I have nothing against small corporations, but it's these big corporations that are anti-democratic. When you have something as big as Walmart, when you have something as big as Goldman Sachs, when you have something as big as Monsanto or Archer Daniels Midland, you have something as anti-democratic. You're taking all this power that otherwise we might decide democratically, and you're giving it to a big corporation, which is an autocracy, is an unaccountable private tyranny, and we have no control over the big corporations, except insofar as we can get control of government and make government get control of the big corporations, make government split up the big corporations, make government tax the big corporations, make government promulgate regulations which keep the big corporations from polluting everything. Make government promulgate regulations that keep Monsanto from destroying the biodiversity of the world. But as long as we don't have a bold, powerful government that is willing to bring these big corporate tyrannies into line, then we're going to have this corporate power structure. But what I'm going to say is that the way corporations are designed, they can be redesigned. Humans invented corporations, and we can uninvent them, and we can reinvent them. For example, corporations currently serve only the shareholders. A corporate officer, especially the CEO, has one obligation, and that is to maximize profits. The CEO's obligation is only to the board of the corporation, and the board is obligated only to the shareholders. So it doesn't have to be that way. Corporations, for one thing, the big corporations that we have can be split up. They can be taxed, because this is a whole other conversation, but I would argue that most of what the big corporations have is ill-gotten gain. That's a whole other conversation. But when you have the power, when you manufacture the weapons of war, for example, and you influence government, and you influence people through the media, and we are thereby more likely to go to war, and you make money off of death and destruction, then that is ill-gotten gain. It's also ill-gotten gain if you're a mining company or an agribusiness company that is allowed to go to Latin America and kill people, dispossess people, support a government that is absolutely brutally tyrannical, and I'm talking about most of the governments in Latin America, except for the handful that are, we won't even talk about Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua and the reality in those countries. That's a whole other conversation. But corporate power structure, such as it is one of the three political causes that we have these five threats. Corporations don't need to be only beholden to the shareholders. They can also be obligated. They can have duties, legally defined duties, to the stakeholders, to their workers, to the people in the communities where they do business. Corporations could have obligations to be good neighbors. Corporations could have a duty of transparency, which says, when you have so much power and so much money, then you no longer have the privilege of keeping your business private. You have to make certain aspects of your business public. That's transparency. Corporations could have a duty of transparency. Item number 4, in the political reasons or the political causes of these 5 threats to human existence, media serves power. Media serves power. The media they've let us down, not like we could ever trust them, but they want us to think that they serve truth and justice. They serve nothing of the like. They serve power. You serve consciously or unconsciously, you serve whoever is paying your bills. The media has no obligation to tell you the truth. They are obligated to the people who sign their paychecks. They are obligated to the people who pay their bills. And so some of the deception, some of the untruth is actually lies of omission. It's what they don't tell you. What they tell you is quite often true. It's what they don't tell you. What they don't tell you about what Monsanto is doing. What they don't tell you about what mining companies are doing. What they don't tell you about what fossil fuel companies are doing. What they don't tell you about who is paying, who has bought our politicians. That information is sometimes not easy to get to, but we have access. The media, the investigative reporting could uncover could uncover stories like who is paying the bills of the New York Times, who is paying the bills of Mitch McConnell. Investigative reporting could uncover that information, but they don't, because why? Media serves power. Number 5, power elites maintain control with powerful myths. So, the myth of American exceptionalism, the myth of innocence, the myth that we are defending ourselves. The Republican Party platform says we should have a strong military because we are defending our shores. Yeah, we pummeled Iraq into oblivion because we were defending our shores. We have bases in Okinawa and the Philippines because we are defending our shores. We haven't defended our shores since 1945 because that's the last time we fought a war that was technically a war of self-defense. Every war since 1945 has been a war of aggression, and yet we have the power elites have powerful myths that tell us that the military machine is defending us. But it's just, that's another conversation. But, we're not defending ourselves. Okay, in order to say that we're defending ourselves from something, they have to promulgate these myths as to who is the enemy. So for a long time, communism was the enemy. That's why we have to go kill 5 million people in Southeast Asia because communism was the enemy. And then, we know communism is not very powerful anymore, so it's socialism that's the enemy. Or if it's not socialism, it's terrorism. That's why we've just killed millions of people defending ourselves from terrorism. Terrorists killed 3,000 people on 9/11, and then we send our service people into wars in which twice or 3 times as many American service people die in foreign wars because we're defending ourselves against terrorism. It's like saying, I'm going to go into the boxing ring and I'm going to win this match. Well, how are you going to win this match? Well, I'm going to win this match by beating the other guy's gloves to death with my face. That's my strategy. That's what we're doing when we're putting our people, and that's only the people who have died, not to mention the PTSD, not to mention $6 trillion we have spent on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's not defense, it's theft. It's theft of the American people. The average American household has spent $75,000 per household in these fake wars against terrorism. And yes, I get a little bit excited about that. That's all we have. Just recap. Here are the 5 political causes of the fact that we have 5 threats to our existence. Power is not held by the majority. Power is money, and money is power. And that's what we've decided upon for the time being, but that's how we're going to structure our affairs politically. 3, corporate power structure. Corporations do not have to be structured the way they are, but they're structured in such a way as to concentrate power and money into a very, very, very few hands. 4, media serves power. Media does not serve you and me. Media does not serve the truth. As long as it's a business, they have to pay their bills, and they're going to not bite the hand that feeds them. They're going to take the people that whoever pays their bills, they're going to not make them look bad. Number 5, power elites maintain control with powerful myths. That's how a tiny minority can maintain control over the vast majority, because they promulgate powerful myths that allow them to do what they do. That's why we face 5 threats to our very existence. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you come back soon. Yep, still recording.